Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the channel. So you may be asking yourself, hey Dan, I thought you were gonna make this into a go-kart, and I was going to and I still want to, but there are some things about this particular quad that are inherently not conducive to turning it into a go-kart. The problem is the distance between the axle and the engine is going to determine where this rear wheel sits relative to the chassis. And it just doesn't really look right. Not so much that it's an aesthetic problem, but the problem really is the fact that if you're going to add a frame way further, you're going to add so much more torque to what this little rear axle can handle. Picture this. You're driving down a path and you hit a bump or you hit a stump or you're going up over something and you're going to make this wheel camber up. Well, in order for this wheel to camber up, it has to cantilever the entire ATV. So the entire ATV is going to go up and jump over that stump. Not a big deal because the ATV is so light, so small, it'll hop over pretty much anything. But if you talk about extending out this frame and adding maybe 400 pounds, think about it. If you add a ton of steel between here and there, and two passengers, you could add upwards of 400 to 500 pounds to what this axle is normally rated to care about. And then you cantilever. This poor little axle has to lift up and lift the entire machine up. It's either that or it's going to bend, break, smash your bearings to pieces, destroy your differential, twist your shock mount, twist the actual shaft that holds the swing arm in place. I started to brainstorm and I started to think around it, and I bought a couple of these Heim Joints. This is a 3/4 inch Heim joint. What the heck would a Heim joint have to do with anything, you may ask? Well, there's some go-karts out there like the Manco Deuce and I believe a couple of Yerf dogs that, and the Kawasaki Bayou is a side-by-side that goes with this theory that you create a pivot point down here and everything like rear of that pivot point is one piece. I was going to take the shock out, solid mount the shock to the frame, maybe even weld from here up a brace on the back end, and then treat this as basically a modular unit, as a drivetrain unit. There would be no suspension between the engine and the swing arm. It would all be basically locked together. So doing that would basically create a semi-independent rear suspension. You would pivot off of that Heim joint and then maybe mount your shocks. You'd have to mount them kind of far back. So maybe back here, maybe tap into these holes, make a shock mount, come up to the back of the frame of the go-kart itself. So you'd have some sort of point of attachment on the go-kart up here. And then the only other point of attachment would be the Heim joint. So what this would allow you to do is when you're going to hit that stump or you're going to hit that rock, the whole quad's not going to try to jump up, or the whole go-kart's not going to try to jump up. You're simply going to pivot on that Heim joint on the rear suspension. So that's a lot of engineering and thinking that has to go into this. The aesthetics of it may not work out, and I'm not all about aesthetics, but for what I want to do, and if I want to keep this thing and keep it reliable and actually enjoy using it, I'm going to want to enjoy looking at the darn thing. So I don't think it's going to be aesthetically pleasing to do that. The other reason I don't really want to use this quad is the front suspension. This is a single A-arm, it's a single A-arm, single shock, single point of pivot front end. So what that means is you have your pivot point right here, and then you have a radius out this way. That radius is going to move, which means because you only have one point of connection between your hub and your pivot point, it's going to move in a radius, which means that this, as you can see, there's a slight bit of positive camber on both of these wheels when there's no weight on it. When there is weight on it, they're pretty much level, and then when they impact the ground with a jump or a bump, they tend to have a lot of negative camber. So that wheel is going to pivot on an arc based on the radius. So there's ways around this. There's not ways around that single A-arm action unless you run double A-arms and completely rethink the way that your hub is and your spindle are connected here, which I don't want to deal with. I really don't want to re-engineer the wheel here. But I flipped these wheels around. So as you can see, there's a giant tub on this side, and you can see how the air valve right there is on the inside of the wheel. Also, most of the dents. But anyway, I did that because I wanted to see how wide the front end could be. Because, again, with aesthetics, that rear end is 39 inches right now. The rear end of the go-kart is 48 inches. So I'd have to add another, almost 10 inches to get it to look even close to how it fits on the go-kart. So I tried wheel spacers, I tried all sorts of stuff, and I only got it about to, I think about 44 inches, 45 inches, which is close, but it still didn't look right. And then you'd had wheel spacers. And I wasn't talking like big, beefy, round, hub-centric things. I was talking about lug extensions. So these are 2.5-inch lug extensions, and I was running them on this side and that side. Again, aesthetically, it looks weird, but this works out. So I tried to, deal with it and widen the front as much as I could. Then I realized that in order for this front end to work, and 2 seats, and me to fit in there, and somebody else to fit in there, and how it's going to work out, and how it's going to look, I'd either have to make 2 new attachment points somewhere under the frame. So I don't believe it would work out where lobbing off the front and reusing the front as is would be viable. I would actually have to probably extend the front end or widen the front end in order for it to work out right. And then you go back to thinking about, all right, so this is a 4-foot wheelbase, something like that. We're going to turn this 4-foot wheelbase into almost a 7-foot wheelbase or a 6.5-foot wheelbase. When this goes around a corner, what's it going to do? This was designed to be a little sport quad that would do jumps, do wheelies, and when you crank in one direction on this thing, it was designed to slide that rear end around and follow those front wheels. And see now when it's turned, you see how you have a ton of positive camber? Well, when you have weight on that outside wheel, that negative camber levels out. That is going to have a little bit more positive camber because the weight's coming off of it. This was designed to be a flat track, flat ground, one person, fly around, lean off, make sure it doesn't fall over kind of thing. Not conducive, really not conducive, excuse me, to a passenger vehicle, to something that's going to be comfortable, something that's going to be, easy to maneuver around slowly. It's just, I just kind of decided I'm over it. I decided that I'm going to sell this, or better yet, I found a guy willing to take it on trade. And what the hell am I going to trade it for? I'm going to trade it for another one of these. There's a few YouTube channels out there of a few guys, and only a few guys, that have taken one of these darn things and made it into something cool. And Musty One has done the best job so far. He basically created a super quad. He created like a quad tractor, a quad truck. He cut it in half, widened it, extended the wheelbase, extended the width of the track, put a bed on the back of it, put a little tractor front end on it. Basically made like a really nice yard cart. SAS Quads is one of them. He was going through the series of turning one of these into like a side-by-side. Then I found probably the best example of one of these done correctly. Metal is Awesome is his name, and he still uploads every once in a while, and I keep pushing him to do a video of the buggy that he built. I want to see it work, and he says it's great, and he says it runs great, and it rides great, and it looks really good. It looks like a military buggy, and it came out great. You have no idea. You have no idea how excited I am for this. The track on these is 48 inches stock. There is 4 feet of track right there. Boom. That's number one. Number one. Very good. 2, independent rear suspension. The other thing is, see how that dish is on the rear end here? See how there's hardly any dish on the outside of those rims? I can flop the rim left to right and gain some more width. And the other nice thing is, not only can we do the front end the same way we can do the back end, flip the wheels and all that, this is a double A-arm front end with a differential in it, with drive shafts. It's gonna make a good go-kart. This one go bye-bye. Get another one of these that's nowhere near as nice, in pieces, and it doesn't run. It has intermittent spark, but the gentleman says that it comes with a new stator. So just so you have kind of an idea of where I'm going with this and what I'm thinking, Seats are going to go here, pretty much right up against the head of that engine. As close as they can get. That's where the seats are going to go, right? Let me back up a little bit here so you can see. Yeah. Seats are going to go here. Floor pan's going to go here. Wheels are going to go about here. So we're only going to be adding about 2 feet, 2.5 feet to one of these, this quad. So not as much as we'd have to move because of the engine situation in this one. Plus, widening the front end of this is very easy. Plus, it's four-wheel drive in the front end. Plus, it's double A-arm suspension. Plus, all I'm going to have to do to make this continue to be four-wheel drive is extend the drive shaft, which means I may have to put like a pillow block in between to be a carrier bearing, which is really no big deal. Plus, all these levers can mount on a little plate in between the two seats, left and right there, so I wouldn't have to extend anything. Plus, all the brakes are hydraulic in front, and I have a foot control off the Triumph after that crash, so I can just plumb that in and have a foot control hydraulic brake. That manual lever, or push-pull lever, that can be actually the e-brake, that's the e-brake already, and I believe I can go flex with it. It has any front plastic, because of that plastic. So we're still going to use that for another channel that needs to try to move it forward, connect to rotate, whatever I want to do. This should be an issue, but anyway, I run the gas tank back here, so the seat is, see, I don't want to see. I have a battery in front of the engine, or behind the engine, or the exhaust is in front of the exhaust. There are so many things I want to do. This ends with a quad here and a quad here, both of the same vintage and type. It was a good video. If not, then you're never going to see this video anyway, and we're going to just start chopping this up. I'm hoping you guys are going to be excited to see this. I'm so excited to do this. I'm so excited to actually chop something in half. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. In the future, you're also going to see a video on how we turned a lawnmower into a go-kart. That's that little boy right there. Again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing, sharing, liking, anything like that. I'm sorry this was just a rambling video of me being excited, but I'm very excited, and hopefully you will come along for the ride on this journey. Take it easy. Keep it rubber side down. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. What do you think we're going to be talking about next episode? That one.